Welcome back into the Midtown Madness podcast with Peter Hale and Zach Miller. I'm Zach Miller, and I'm joined, as always, by Pete Hale. And we got a lot of Billiken talk this week, Pete. A lot of news dropped, basketball related, other sports, and then sports adjacent news as well coming out of Midtown.
Yeah, we've had a fun summer. It feels like every time you think things are going to slow down, we've got another wave of Billiken related news happening. So it's certainly kept us both busy.
It warms the heart. We were just talking right before we hit record and got that lovely voice telling us recording in progress that sports are starting soon. Like I'm going to be on vacation in the third weekend of August, and by the time I get back, there's going to be a soccer game that has been played at least.
Yeah, we've got soccer starting up, all the other fall sports. There's some, more soccer news with the facility being upgraded. We've got, they put out a full report on the incoming soccer class. I mean, fall sports are like, yeah, you're right, a few weeks away.
Some Billiken or some athletic department adjacent, sports adjacent news. SLU Night at the Cardinal game coming up Friday. This episode will drop probably Wednesday, so a couple days away. Looks like a nice shirt. I talked to Kyle Cassidy. He said the shirt's really nice. It's Next Level brand, which I believe I have one around here somewhere of that brand. It's like it's a shirt that it's a nice tri-blend shirt. So I know we always talk about that when we talk about home field. So I think this is going to be worth your while to go get the theme night.
The SLU Night at the ballpark always makes me kind of jealous being an out of towner, because I always want the merch that they're giving away with it. A few years ago, they did that like mesh baseball jersey that I think was awesome. And this looks like a pretty nice shirt. And it's never like the giveaway shirts you get at a a typical game where it has like the sponsor all over it or anything like that. It's just a straight up SLU logo, Cardinals logo, everything in royal blue. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I wear that baseball jersey from time to time. That's one of the few things that's kind of a giveaway, or so to speak, that I will wear fairly often. That, and they did the pullover, the quarter zip recently. That was really, really nice too. So a good track. I was a little underwhelmed at the design, to be honest, when I first saw the shirt, but knowing that it's a Next Level brand, it's like a tri-blend, and their history with giveaways, I'm pretty confident this is going to be worth whatever they're charging for the theme price. Big news for guys like me who like to have a beer before the game, and you. We're slowly learning new information about what may be happening with Humphreys.
Yeah, this is kind of, the Humphreys thing has been frustrating for a lot of us for years. Somebody bought the property, and I don't know all the details, but he's more or less sat on it. When it was first sold, there were some renderings of what it might be, and that was kind of promising. And it just became clear nothing was happening. But now there's actually construction happening. It's moving again. And if it's anything like the renderings we've seen, it looks like it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if I can keep up this new like athletic lifestyle I've been cultivating if Humphreys is going to look like that. I may move back into the lofts just to be close to a bar that looks like that. Cause but again, like we saw these renderings and yeah, I'm still trying to hold back. I'm holding back my expectations. I'm not letting myself get too excited.
If it looks like what it's supposed to look like in the drawings we've seen, you've got kind of like a traditional Irish bar outside where it's like it's got that sort of painted green front that sticks out a little bit, maybe a little gold or brown trim or something like that. And those window panes, like the kind of, cross pattern window panes. And then it's got a really nice terrace on kind of the second floor. And it looks just like it's going to be a delightful place to have a beer. So if they can make it look that sharp from the outside and then kind of retain some of the old charm from the inside, maybe they can find some of the old SLU stuff they had hanging up on the walls or something too, or we'll just have to build that up over time. But yeah, it would be so nice to have that back. I think every college campus deserves that sort of traditional old kind of lived in bar where grad students and professors feel fine going there to have a beer and some food at happy hour, and then your undergrads hit it up more late night kind of thing. SLU's been missing that for too long, and I would love to have that back finally.
Yeah, if whoever's working to get Humphreys back running again, if you're looking for any memorabilia, I'm happy to negotiate for some gift cards. I would gladly give up some of the stuff that I have to go on Humphreys for some gift cards. Congratulations go out to Margo Lubus. She is the president of the Billiken Club, or was the liaison of the Billiken Club.
Yeah,
Gosh.
I should know her
I
exact
know.
title, but I don't.
She's done so much to help me in the past.
Yeah.
Like I feel terrible. Director of Annual Giving and Planned Events.
There you go. Yeah. So Margo is one of, along with another person retiring, Robin Kruger, the office coordinator for the athletic department. Those two and Janet Oberly are the only three people, I think, the only three people still in the athletic department from when I was there in college from 2001 to 2005. And I think all three of them would have started in the 90s. And obviously they do an awesome job. They've been there for a long time. And so, yeah, Margo and Robin they're both really nice people. They're so great to deal with. I know a lot of alums deal with Margo for the Billiken Club, and she's responsive, just a really nice woman. So best to both of them in their retirement. They deserve a long, happy retirement, and I hope they get to do whatever they want, because they really deserve it.
Yeah, she has been part of the athletic department since September of 1996.
Okay.
Which is an impressive longevity in an industry with high turnover and people just consistently, moving up and from school to school. So an impressive career.
I think Robin started the year after her. So,
wow.
So yeah, between the two of them, they've had quite a collective career there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who replaces Margo. I think anybody who has spent time around the Billiken alumni parties, I honestly, oh gosh, man, I am blanking. There are several people that would be shoe-ins for that role, I think, that have been around for quite some time. Moving on to athletics news and Billiken talk. We're going to talk a little bit about Jordan Goodwin, but we have a guest coming on. We're going to record with Matt Modderno. He co-hosts the Bleav in the Wizards podcast with Larry Hughes. So once we finish our little back and forth, we're going to kick it over to that interview and really get in depth as far as Jordan Goodwin, his prospects with the Wizards, and what exactly this contract is going to entail with him going into the season. What was your reaction, Pete, to Jordan Goodwin maybe not getting drafted?
Yeah, so I stayed up for the whole draft, which on East Coast time, let me tell you, it goes pretty late. Actually, the second round does move pretty quickly. But when you start looking at the names of like the best available, which I was looking about mid second round, I started really looking at that and thinking like, wow, it is really, really hard to get drafted in the NBA. And there are so many good basketball players and 60 spots. I mean, and that's all a draft is. It's 60. And yeah, that night, most it seems like almost everybody gets traded right away now. And it's hard to keep up with who goes where. But the point is, there are only 60 people in the world who get drafted. And when you look at some of the names that did not get drafted this year, there's no shame whatsoever in not being drafted. Guys like Trendon Watford from LSU, who we saw, you had a few guys from Duke, and then you had somebody like Luka Garza, who was like all world for 4 years, going late in the second round. There are some just really, really good players who don't get the honor of being drafted. So first off, like it's not a surprise, and it's not anything to be disappointed about that Goodwin didn't get drafted, and he's certainly going to get his opportunities. Did you stay up and watch the whole draft?
I haven't stayed up past 10 and I don't know how long on a weeknight. I have somehow went from 31 to 60 in my bedtimes. No, I didn't. It's amazing the way you put it's really hard to get drafted, because I think that echoes exactly what Seth Greenberg told myself and Colin back in November, at how absolutely elite you have to be to be in that top 60. So I kind of figured he wouldn't. I woke up and kind of was disoriented to figure out, because I woke up to West Pine Bills saying they were buying a Wizards jersey. And I was like, oh, wait, he didn't get drafted. Oh, he got signed. So I was like, okay. And then I looked up their G League affiliate. I said, maybe a Goodwin Capital City Go-Go jersey would be way cooler than like a Wizards jersey. Like that would be like a talking point at a bar. Like, why do you have that?
Yeah, I like those kind of deep cut fan jerseys. Like, most people aren't going to know what it is, but the people who
Exactly.
do are going to come right over to you and yeah, be talking to you. Yeah, I'm kind of looking through some of the guys who didn't get drafted this year, and you've got names like Mac McClung, Aaron Henry from Michigan State, Joel Ayayi from Gonzaga, McKinley Wright from Colorado, Dwayne Washington, Ohio State, Austin Reeves from Oklahoma. We saw Trendon Watford when we played LSU this past season, and he definitely looked like a pro to me when we played them. So that's just kind of a sampling of the guys who, like Goodwin, didn't get drafted but have already kind of signed these contracts, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah, you mentioned the deep cut jerseys. It rides a fine line, because you'll get into like the like if somebody is wearing like a River City Rascals jersey and saying, you're just like, but like a G League, I think would be like, outside of like wearing that jersey in like Washington D.C., the Capitals, people would be like, what a dork, and then but like here it'd be like, oh, that's freaking cool. No, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't watch the NBA. I just, for whatever reason, I've never had, it's kind of like college football. I've never had a rooting interest. I'll watch it sometimes, but my small brain cannot comprehend how NBA talent is evaluated. It doesn't compute with me. I can understand baseball, football, hockey. I can get that. Basketball is such a sport about athleticism and potential. It's just different.
It really is. One of the examples that I always think of to illustrate that point, there's a local player he's played for both the Warriors, the Raptors. Can't remember if he's still there now, but Pat McCaw. who played at CBC, and then he left and did a prep year for his final year of before college. And then I think he did one season at UNLV before getting drafted. And it was just like, wait, Pat McCaw, what? Like he went from a guy who was a really good high school player. Maybe he was a little too skinny and, didn't have a fully developed game or anything like that. And then, yeah, he was a good college player, but like, I don't know. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, he's probably a first rounder. And it was like, whoa, I don't understand this at all. But so, yeah, I mean, they're looking at long-term potential more than anything, like what you did in college I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but there's way more important factors than that. And I certainly don't know everything that goes into an NBA scout's mind.
Yeah, they're starting to skew younger too. I mean, I think that's kind of been common knowledge at this point that, it's almost getting to it's I could foresee a time, they're looking for ways to, kind of take over the NCAA or for the NCAA. I could see a time where they try to push towards a system much like European soccer, and start taking kids instead of starting these schools and funneling academy type situation. But it's wild to see how much if you played 4 years of college, sometimes you're too old to be to get that draft pick.
Yeah, I think it's very rare that a 4-year college player is going to be anything but a role player in the NBA, like kind of a journeyman who won't have a super long career. Because you're right, they do want, if you're looking at a player as a long-term asset, you want that asset to be as young as possible, but still at the same time something that you can mold, into somebody who can be productive. In terms of going like the long-term academy system route, yeah, I mean, that could be potentially where they go in the long term. I mean, the G League is certainly a starting point, and now you're seeing other alternatives to sort of the typical college track. There are other non-college leagues beginning to form. Some players are playing a year overseas. Some are going straight to the G League after taking a prep year out of high school or things like that. So there are a lot of ways to get to the NBA now, and I think they'll find you. You can be in a small town in Eastern Europe, and if you fit the mold, they'll find you. So I think players are becoming more aware of that now too.
So what do we know? Just kind of a high level overview, because we're definitely going to get way into the weeds with Matt Modderno. But we know that the Wizards signed him to what's called an Exhibit 10 contract. What do you know about the Exhibit 10 contract?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had to read up a lot in the last few days. Since we heard about Goodwin signing one with the Wizards. Just at a high level, it's a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year contract, where they basically let the NBA team, convert it into a 2-way contract. But that has to happen prior to the regular season. And then players can earn a bonus of 50,000. I think 50,000 is actually the max that they can earn. And in the meantime, they can sign with the G League affiliate. And I think they earn that bonus as long as they stay with the affiliate for 60 days. So I think that's kind of just the basics of it, which is it high level. It allows the teams to kind of hang on to a player in this period. It lines them up with a G League affiliate team, and it gives the NBA team some flexibility. So it's for guys like Goodwin. It's you're not quite the guy who gets drafted, but we're not willing to let go of you quite yet.
And as we mentioned earlier, the G League affiliate for the Washington Wizards is the Capital City Go-Go. I Bleav they play. I would imagine they play in Washington D.C. as well with that name. But yeah, we're gonna get into that way more about Jordan Goodwin, the Washington Wizards, the Capital City Go-Go, his podcast with Larry Hughes, and an Exhibit 10 contract. And we're gonna kick it over to that interview right now. All right, Billiken fans, we've got an exciting guest on the show today. Matt Modderno. He co-hosts Bleav in Wizards podcast with a guy I'm sure you are all familiar with, Larry the Legend Hughes. Matt, welcome into the Midtown Madness. How are you doing?
I'm good, guys. Great to be here. I got a question for you real quick. Is Larry the most famous St. Louis basketball alum of the last 50 years? I'm not sure.
By far? 50 years, yes.
Okay.
I think so. Pete, maybe, I mean, you're, I don't want to say you're older than me, but you're older than me.
Yeah, it's got to be him. We've had a few other guys go to the NBA, but it's definitely Larry. You'd have to go back to like the Easy Ed Macaulay days to find another player who had a bigger impact in the NBA.
Now, as far as international basketball goes, we have an Olympian who we've had recently on the podcast, Kevin Lish, who played in Australia and then again played for the national team down there. Yeah, welcome in. First things first, how in the heck did you get linked up with Larry Hughes in this podcast, man?
I cover the Wizards for an SB Nation blog called Bolts Forever, and got approached by the Bleav podcast network about starting a Wizards podcast. And their model is to pair kind of a host with an athlete or a player. So like Rick Barry does the Warriors podcast and things like that. They've got some pretty legit talent on there. So they were trying to figure out who should be the former Wizard on the show. And Larry and I have some mutual connections that said he was a great dude and a good person to talk hoops with. So I reached out and he was willing to do it. And we're about, I don't know, 2 years in at this point and going strong. And honestly, he couldn't be a nicer guy to work with and do this with every week. So I got lucky.
Is it a weekly show, bi-weekly, monthly?
Yeah, weekly. Yeah, we do it every week. I mean, give or take, every once in a while, one of us will take a little longer on vacation. Actually, Larry's son, Larry Jr., is a pretty good up and coming basketball player. So they've been at Peach Jam and EYBL all month. So Larry has actually missed the last 2, I think. But other than that, we've probably missed a combined 5 shows over that time.
Speaking of Larry Jr., has he given you kind of any insight what he's doing for college?
I got no sneak peek or insider info for you guys. Unfortunately, I have not checked with Larry to see how it went for him this week, but he made the NBA Player Association's top 100 camp. So that's a pretty big deal for him. So I think he'll probably get a couple more offers coming in here over the next couple of weeks, I would imagine.
Well, that's all we got for you guys, Billiken fans. That's all we were looking for. The real reason we brought you on, Billiken fans are itching to know. What was your reaction to, I mean, obviously in the grand scheme of Wizards basketball, like an Exhibit 10 contract isn't exactly an exciting transaction in the offseason. But what did you think about the Billikens taking a shot on our baby boy, Jordan Goodwin?
I've actually watched a good amount of Billikens over the last couple of years, especially since doing the show with Larry. It's a little more of interest to me than normally before.
Now you're just sucking up.
Well, and yeah, exactly. I got a small rooting interest now. A happy podcast partner is a happy me too. So I'll take it. I like Jordan, man. I think he's got a reasonable, chance at getting some NBA minutes this year. I would think. I don't know that he'll be like a regular fixture on the team, but the nice setup here in Washington is the G League team, the Capital City Go-Go, is literally 15 minutes down the road, and they've been pretty good about using that the last couple of years. So if he can kind of stick around or get a G League deal, maybe a call-up action here or there, I think there's a real chance, especially just the way they're seemingly having a hard time filling out the roster in free agency right now. There's going to be some spots to play with. And, most of their backup point guard is Aaron Holiday that went to UCLA. He's a little on the smaller side. So somebody like Jordan that has some size and athleticism, I think would be a nice change of pace.
They do look a little thin at guard. So who would he kind of be competing with? I mean, Holiday's a little further up the depth chart, but as you get to the guys, the kind of down the bench or free agents, who are the other guys that he might be competing with for minutes?
So the backup point guards last year were Ish Smith and Raul Neto, and both are free agents. Neto's probably 50-50 on coming back, I would think. I haven't heard much noise on him. Ish Smith signed with Charlotte today, I think. So kind of next on the roster there would be Cassius Winston, former Michigan State point guard. Didn't look particularly good last year, so he's got some work cut out for him, I think, too. So, Jordan's just kind of a different animal than somebody like Cassius, who's not super athletic. He is a shooter, kind of a smart, heady player, but Jordan's got a little more flash to him. So I think that might give him an opportunity there. Wizards GM Tommy Shepard said he wants to get more athletic. That is sort of a focus for them. And from what I've seen, I think Jordan ticks that box.
You mentioned size and him being taller than I can't remember which guard you mentioned, but what do you think about a player of Jordan's size and his ability to rebound the ball translating to the NBA?
We had reasonable success with a point guard that's known for rebounding pretty well last year with Russell Westbrook. Obviously, Jordan wouldn't come in and do the same thing, but as an organization that's not opposed to grab and go. And I think one of the things you see in the NBA is when you don't have that outlet pass, you can actually move the ball up the court a little faster. So if you have a point guard like that can kind of get it himself and start the break on a team that wants to play fast or is historically wanted to play fast, I think there's actually some advantage to that. We don't really know what new Wizards coach Wes Unseld will try to do or try to install, but the last regime, I think, would have really liked something like that.
You have you heard Bradley Beal give any kind of statement or opinion on Goodwin? Coincidentally, Goodwin played for the AAU team that is now named after Brad Beal.
I have not heard anything. Brad's been a little quiet this offseason. Just all the Russell Westbrook stuff going on and what happened with him with COVID and not being able to go to the Olympics. It's been a little quieter on that front. So the team actually hasn't even done like an official media session to announce the Exhibit 10 signings or anything like that. We just kind of barely snuck in the draft stuff on Thursday or Friday of last week. So they haven't really talked about it yet. I would be curious to see what the statement is. I'm sure it's somebody he is pretty well familiar with because Brad actually seems pretty involved with the Bradley Beal elite. So I'm sure he's pretty familiar with Goodwin's game.
So I people who are watching this podcast could see the wheels turning in my head, I think, when you mentioned the head coach of the Washington Wizards being Wes Unseld Jr., who in a ridiculous twist of fate has a Billiken connection, being the cousin of our color broadcast color man, Earl Austin Jr. Pete, am I right on that? Or am I dumb?
Yeah, they are indeed cousins.
So I just it's kind of crazy to see, Larry Hughes played for the Wizards. Bradley Beal plays for the Wizards. I mean, you wonder if the connections are there.
Heidi White from St. Louis as well, right?
Yep.
Former Wizard.
Famously didn't pick the SLU hat, correct, Pete?
Yeah, that's right. That's something I haven't thought about in a long time. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, a little more of a throwback there.
I got to ask you a question real quick that's a little off the rails, but why are they called the Capital City Go-Go?
So go-go music is sort of the official style of music of Washington, D.C. Give that a try later. It's kind of up-tempo and it's hard to explain really, but it is a style of music that is unique to the DC area. So they wanted something that was very sort of DC only and not, another kind of generic name. And I think the one thing they try to do with the G League overall is to try to make sure that it's not, it's more like minor league baseball where you have kind of creative names. You can get some merch out there, like the Iowa Wolves and stuff like that isn't really going to sell as many t-shirts. So I think something unique and cool is kind of what they're going for.
Yeah, we've got the St. Louis Blues, so we can appreciate that that musical connection. So who else did the Wizards sign to these Exhibit 10 contracts? How many did they put out there?
The only other one I've seen, well, definitively so far for an Exhibit 10 deal right now is Jay Huff, center out of Virginia, kind of a big burly dude, but he can step out and shoot it a little bit. So I think he's got a reasonable shot of probably sticking around with the Go-Go all year as well. And the Go-Go didn't go to the G League bubble last year. They sent a couple of guys to play with the Erie Bayhawks. So that's sort of our next closest G League affiliate. I think they sent 4 guys. So they've got kind of like to start fresh with a roster. They usually see a couple of the same faces from year to year. So I think all these guys are realistic shots to get a couple minutes there. The other one was a high school player named Kyrie Walker. Kyrie was a 5-star recruit at a certain point in his high school career, was the number one high school freshman in the country ahead of like Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Scotty Barnes, all the guys who just went in this draft, and had some off-court stuff. Well, I don't mean an off-court in a negative way, but like some family personal stuff where I didn't play as well. He opted not to go to college and spent the year training for the draft. Ultimately didn't get drafted. So he's got like a summer league deal, but there's no real sort of hard and fast competition for someone like Jordan to at least get like a heavy dose of summer league minutes and a chance to, show what he's about.
I have a question tangentially related to kind of these, the Exhibit 10 guys, the fringe guys. Is there, because I don't follow the NBA, is there kind of a shift with these new ventures starting up to try to take away the younger players instead of going to college, where the NBA is adjusting? Or is that really not even a blip on the radar for, a guy like Jordan Goodwin as far as competition goes to make a roster?
I think they're just trying to give people more options overall to come in from different avenues and make it so it's not just like sort of one size fits all path to an NBA career. So I think whether you're an Exhibit 10 guy or a two-way guy or just a direct G League signing, or you're just a summer league invite or a training camp invite, there's more than just did you go first or second round, and if you didn't, you're sort of SOL longer term. So I think I sort of halfway answered your question there, but I think they're trying to just make it accessible to different guys, and at least as many guys as they can get looks at, the better. I think it's sort of the NBA approach.
What's the limit on how many Exhibit 10 guys that any team can sign?
That's a great question. For two-way contracts, I know it's 2. I cannot remember for Exhibit 10. I think it might also be 2. That's the most the Wizards have picked up at any point while Exhibit 10s have been a thing. I don't know if that's by choice or design or if that's the actual cap, but so again, not positive, I think 2. Because last year they had to release a couple guys to make room for other people to give Exhibit 10s. And realistically, it is just a promise that if you do end up making this team, there is some structure in place for, what your deal would look like. Hey, if you play X amount of games, this becomes guaranteed. If you last beyond this point in the season, that's guaranteed, that sort of thing.
Are there any notable guys across the NBA that started as Exhibit 10 guys that you can think of?
Exhibit 10 guys, not that I can think of, again, is relatively new, but just G League guys overall, I think like 50 or 48, or I mean, it's a pretty reasonable percentage of the guys that played in the NBA finals had spent at least some amount of time in the G League. So that's not really like a taboo thing like it used to be. So I think that's a pretty viable path. And that's probably the most likely route for Jordan at this point. But the nice thing, about the way the Go-Go have been run the last couple of years is they're not afraid to like give all of these guys an opportunity. It's not like an NBA team where if you're the last guy on the bench, you don't play. Like they they've kind of healthily cycled through minutes. And the thing with the G League too is, if you were on the actual G League roster, when your team is away from home, a lot of those draft pick guys stay with the big club. So somebody like a Jordan, if he wasn't on an actual NBA contract, he'd get a good amount of opportunities to make this team. And just stylistically, under the previous coaching staff, they played multiple point guards at the same time. So being a guard heavy rotation, I think gives him a lot of opportunities to kind of go out there and show some different stuff.
Are there any other, given all the movement on NBA rosters currently, are the Wizards kind of involved in any big rumors, any moving parts aside from, the Westbrook thing?
The big one right now is Spencer Dinwiddie, that's played the last several years with the Brooklyn Nets, is likely a sign and trade candidate for the Wizards. So I think they've spent the last day and a half trying to figure out what a potential contract with him would look like. And now it's ironing out, they don't have the cap space to make room for him directly. So they'd have to ship some guys out. Who would Brooklyn want from them? Is there a third team involved? That kind of stuff. So that is another sort of bigger point guard, combo guard, kind of a 1-2 hybrid there that they would be looking to bring in. But again, there's not a lot of financial flexibility based on where they were with John Wall and then Russell Westbrook and Davis Bertans, if you're familiar with him at all, signed kind of a lofty contract that hasn't gone particularly well. Brad obviously makes a lot of money. So they're going to be looking for guys that can contribute and be impact players on the fringes. And again, I'm not saying like Jordan's going to come in and be a starter, but they'll give him a real long look, I think, at seeing if he can kind of cheaply come in and contribute.
Our listeners know that I'm the goofball of the podcast. So really, I'm just going to give Pete free reign here to just ask whatever questions he's got. And then I'll finish up when he's done with one last question.
I really just have one more. Do you think they'll hang on to Brad Beal? Or do you think he's kind of a piece that they can, maybe get some younger long-term assets and kind of rebuild completely?
I expect him to be here at least long enough to sign that big extension. By all accounts, he's happy here. The family's happy here. Not that Larry has any insider info, but Larry is somebody that walked a similar path coming from St. Louis to DC, really liked the area. That's why he still does a Wizards podcast. With me, he's sort of fond of the fans in the area and the vibe here. So I think maybe similarly for Brad, it just sort of fits him and sort of his family dynamic. So I don't see them trading him unless he strongly demands out of town. That's sort of not what our ownership group is about. So I wouldn't bet on it unless things go really terribly wrong, over the first half of the season here.
All right. One final question. We're going to put you on the hot seat. Percentage that Jordan Goodwin makes the Wizards opening night roster.
Percentage he makes opening night roster. I would say less than 10, unfortunately. No. I think the chance that he makes the Capital City Go-Go roster for the year, probably a good deal higher. I would say that's probably 75+%. They were pretty reasonable about taking the guys that were on Exhibit 10s last year and giving them an opportunity on the G League team. So I think that's his most likely route. That he plays some amount of NBA minutes somewhere this year, I think is probably a good deal higher than that 10%, but I'm not sure, how much beyond that.
Well, thank you, Matt, so much for joining us. And tell Larry we said hello and tell him we'd love to get him on the podcast sometime.
I'll see what I can do.
I appreciate you, man. Have a great evening.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
See you. All right, we're back. We hope you guys enjoyed that, our talk with Matt Modderno. We want to thank him so much for coming on and giving us a lot more insight than either of us have as far as the Washington Wizards organization. Again, more stuff that's kind of this is actually, this is basketball. This is basketball talk. Robb Hornett assistant athletic director for strength and conditioning, is leaving the university. What kind of loss is this for the Billikens?
Yeah, this is pretty big actually, because he's been the force behind some of the physical transformation you've seen with some of the players on our roster. Most recently, we've talked about this in our last few shows, but if you've seen Javante Perkins lately on any of the team's social media posts or anything like that, he's added over 15 pounds of just pure muscle, really has transformed his body. And Hornett is really the driving force behind that. You look at a lot of like the development that we've seen in some of our big men over the years, recent years, and Hornett has really been the key to that. He really has done a great job with men's basketball in particular, getting these guys ready for the next level if they're going to play professionally, but really setting them up to get the most out of their potential while they're at SLU. I loved everything I heard from the guy, read about him, his philosophy, the way he approached things. Just had a really smart approach to strength and conditioning. So he's going to be tough to replace. And we don't know where he's going, do we?
No, and contrary to the rumors, he is not becoming my personal coach.
So who's going to help you get down to your target weight of 105? Or is it up to your target of 105?
Yeah, it's up to the target of 105.
Yeah,
I gotta put on some mass. I got the beefcake. Jesus, we've really gone off the rails. No, we don't know where he's going yet. And this is one of the things that I think is strange about the athletic department, is that they don't ever put out releases when people leave, if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I have. I don't know why either. Another thing I'll say about the athletic department, they've been really smart about the hires they make. Like, it seems like they get the right people at kind of the right time in their careers. We've done no shortage of gushing over Katie Shields with the women's soccer program. The assistants that Travis Ford has hired for the men's program have been great. Lisa Stone in the women's program, really, they're all heading in the right direction. Anywhere you look in the athletic department, it seems like we hire really well. So I'm confident we'll find the right person to replace Hornett. But I definitely, it kind of feels like an Irish goodbye when people leave. Like, it's just very quiet. We don't really get a whole lot of information. And I don't know why. I think it would be better that way.
News that, some news that came out. We're moving on. I apologize. I'm terrible at transitions, guys. I apologize. News that came out a while back, while I was on vacation, because why would news not come out when we have a chance to record? Jimmy Bell has left the program and is transferring to Moberly Area Community College. Or no, is it just Moberly Community College?
It's Moberly area.
Okay, yeah. It is. Yes, it is. Sorry, I have it in the notes. What the heck?
Yeah, it's really late in the game for that to happen. I was pretty shocked when we saw it. Jimmy's he was always going to be a developmental big. He's a guy who lost a ton of weight in his final year of high school ball, came into SLU, and he still had work to do. I mean, speaking of Robb Hornett, really working hard with Jimmy to kind of get in shape, stay in shape, prepare his body, for the rigors of the college game, to really be productive for 4 years. And I know Bell, was one of a few bigs, and he wasn't necessarily recruited over, but we had Martin Linson transfer in this past year. We've got Francis Okoro coming in. I think Bell was still fine to not be like the starting center on day one or anything like that. I think he's always known that it's been a long-term trajectory that he's on. And certainly we need that depth in the front court. Because we really now have two traditional centers and no power forwards. So we're suddenly kind of a little thin in down low. So I don't think this was planned. I don't think it's anything anybody wanted. I don't know the whole story here. But I was as shocked as you are to hear it. And we're definitely gonna miss him.
Are we connecting the dots that Rob Hornett's going to be going to Moberly area?
I don't know. I doubt it. I think whatever Jimmy learned with him though, he'd be smart to kind of take some of those lessons with him to Moberly.
Yeah, it's tough for this team because we were already, like you said, we're already thin on the front line. As far as foul trouble goes, if Linson and Okoro get in a foul trouble, we need to get out there and get a big. Recruiting, it's a full court press for a big, right?
Yeah, it has to be. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more than one in the end. I think Ford has said as much. And you think of something like, okay, yeah, maybe you find one more guy who's going to contribute minutes, but if you could find another Rashid Anthony, somebody who's willing to kind of come in and be a leader and a practice player for a couple of years and not necessarily worry about those minutes, that's valuable too, because really Linson and Okoro only have each other to go against in practice now. And I think if no matter what position you're at, you need to see different looks in training. You can't just go against the same guy every day in practice and think, that you're ready for anybody you see out in the college game, unless that guy happens to be like a future NBA player who's just going to make you that much better. And make no mistake, those are two good big men that we have, but they do need to see a little bit more, and we do need the depth.
So since we're on the topic of recruiting, one little wrinkle that may have been thrown into the Brad Beal elite to St. Louis Billikens pipeline, Corey Frazier is moving on from Brad Beal elite, and what high school was he at? Why am I thinking MICDS?
John Burroughs.
John Burroughs. Thank you. Yes. He's going to Overtime Elite, which is going to be a new just out of high school league. He's going to be a head coach.
Yeah, so that we had mentioned before some of the different options that players have now aside from college ball, and we're seeing more and more top players take alternate routes to get to the pros, but this is one of them. And I don't know a whole lot about this league or how it's going to be set up or anything like that, but it does seem like it has some financial backing. So I imagine that he got enough to entice him out of a solid high school AAU gig. So I guess there's some potential here, and if he can get at least a few good seasons at a decent salary, I guess it makes sense. And he's going to be, if everything goes as planned, he should be coaching some pretty talented players there as well. It is a loss for us. That Brad Beal Elite program has obviously been kind of a feeder for SLU lately, and it's certainly an AAU program, one of the best in the country and one that we recruit really hard. So having a former SLU guy there it certainly always was nice. So yeah, we'll miss him there, and best to him in this new league. But yeah, I don't know enough about the league yet to quite say what it's going to look like for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. All these startup leagues, I worked in minor league sports for about 2 years total, and all these startup sports leagues just remind me of all of like the indoor soccer, indoor football, just kind of. But this one, you got Kevin Ollie involved, Jay Williams, Carmelo Anthony, Malcolm Turner, Avery Johnson, Ken Shropshire. Who else we got? You've got some decent sized names in here that, we'll see how it goes. But if he can get a couple years as a coach in that system, that's a big career, a big career building thing you can put on his resume.
Yeah, definitely. And among the names you listed, I mean, not just former NBA players, but some NBA coaches there too. So he'll be making a lot of contacts here, and hopefully, if things go well for this league, he'll be around some talent and getting his name out there more than he would, at a small high school in St. Louis. And even though Brad Beal Elite's a really good program, it doesn't. AAU coaching typically isn't a feeder for higher level jobs necessarily. It's you can make your name in those and do things like camps, but that's you're not jumping into other ranks of coaching necessarily out of AAU.
Speaking of Brad Beal Elite, you put on an absolute masterclass in social media reporting, the likes of which we have not seen since Twitter started, during the EYBL Peach Jam. Give us you went, if you're listening to this right now and you want some deep dive information on what happened at the EYBL and SLU recruits there, go check out our Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod. But Pete, give us kind of an easy recap of what happened at the EYBL Peach Jam as it pertains to Billiken recruits.
Yeah, so just at a high level, the EYBL is it's Nike's AAU league. Normally, the way it's structured is that the regular season itself will take place at 3 different cities over 3 weekends, usually spaced over the course of like late June to late July. They'll kind of they'll do like a late June in Indianapolis, and then they'll do another weekend in Chicago, and then a third weekend in Charlotte, and then it culminates with basically the playoffs, which is the Peach Jam, and that's always in North Augusta, Georgia. And so the way the Peach Jam is structured is there's 4 groups. You've whittled down the EYBL. They take, depending on the year, you might take half, you might take 2/3 of the teams from the EYBL. And then the top 2 teams from each group will play in a quarterfinal playoff over Saturday and Sunday, the final being on Sunday. It just so happened that this year, Brad Beal Elite, which is a St. Louis-based program, formerly the St. Louis Eagles, made it to the final. And came up short against a team called Team Final, actually, a Philadelphia-based program that happens to have like 4 top 100 recruits, and I think 2 of them are even like top 10 or fringe top 10 players. So they ran into a very big team, both metaphorically and literally big team, and came up short there. But they had a great event overall. So that, I was able to watch during the EYBL and Peach Jam all but a couple of games, and the two guys who are seniors, incoming seniors in high school now, Kellen Thames from Pattonville, Nick Kramer from St. Louis U High, are both reserves on Brad Beal Elite, and played in every game in this event. Neither of them had the kind of event that necessarily jumps off the stat sheet. Kramer had a few games where he really lit it up. He really got hot. And then Thames he had a nice arc over the whole thing, where by the Peach Jam itself, he was putting in games where he'd have like 11, 4, and 3, or he'd have a game where he scored 7, got 7 rebounds and a couple of steals. You could kind of see his confidence in his game grow throughout this event. Whereas Kramer, it more came down to, him getting good looks, hitting some shots early and finding his rhythm. So he had some games where he'd go like 0 for 4, and then the next game he'd go 4 for 6. And he wound up being the 3rd leading scorer on Brad Beal Elite over the whole event, coming off the bench. So he had a really nice event overall. The thing that I wanted to see out of both of these guys wasn't necessarily, to light the gym on fire with their numbers or anything like that, because they're playing on a team with Brandon Miller out of Nashville, who's like a top 15 player on a lot of rankings. He's a 5-star recruit. Kentucky, Tennessee, a lot of high-level programs are after him. And then Nick Smith, who, he's always been kind of a fringe top 50 recruit, but I think he made a leap in this event to be, unquestionable 5-star player. Those are the guys who are the, you know, top dogs for Brad Beal. They're getting the most minutes, the most points, everything. What I wanted to see from Kramer and Thames was, you know, do I see the pieces of guys who are going to contribute at SLU? And I think the answer is yes for both of them. With Nick Kramer, you've got a guy who's kind of a fearless gunner from 3. And, you know, like I said, it took him a while to find his stroke in some games. But when he gets going, he's really a confident shooter, shoots from anywhere, shoots under any off the dribble, fading away, he's got one of his best shots that he really had working for him throughout this event was he'd head fake, shot fake, get his guy off the floor, one dribble, step to his left, and bang. And he really would hit that in rhythm, and it was dangerous. He's also a really high level defender. I know we've compared him to Anthony Drea before. He just gets right up on dudes, and he's got not stocky, but he's got a solid build where he's ready to defend in college, like right now. Kellen Thames is a guy who he's got a narrower frame. He's a little skinny, he's still growing. So he's kind of raw physically in some ways. But he's a really smart player who's just like always in the right place at the right time. And, you know, there were games where he'd play 11 or 12 minutes and have like 7 rebounds. He's just everywhere he needed to be. He kind of struggled to find his shot from 3. He hit a few big ones kind of later in the event, but just really moves the ball well, rebounds well, is just always in the right position. He's a smart guy, and I think it'll take a little time for him to kind of, you know, physically catch up, but he's got a versatile game that I think translates. So these are both guys that I think are going to be nice players at SLU.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how these guys translate to the college game. It really seems like Travis is really prioritizing shooters and getting out in transition and getting those guys to the wing and letting them fire threes. Is that kind of the impression you're getting as well?
I mean, that's certainly Kramer's game. And, you know, and I will make this comment. Both of them play a much different role for this Brad Beal elite team than they do for their high school teams. Kramer plays on a SLU team that's kind of an average high school team. They were just about 500 last year, or maybe a game or 2 under. And he does everything for them. You know, he scores like 40+% of their points. He rebounds, he distributes, and he's always drawing the toughest defensive assignment as well. Thames is kind of the same thing. He's kind of the lead dog on a team, but his team is much better. They've got 4 guys who score in double digits. But at the same time, you know, both of these guys are playing the number 1 role on their high school teams, whereas they're playing like a number 6 or 7 role on Brad Beal elite. But so they're going to have more of a green light in high school than they do, you know, for Brad Beal elite. And that, you know, they're both guys who last season scored over 19 points a game. Very curious to see what they look like this high school season compared to how they just played in this AAU thing. But yeah, they like if he's looking for shooters, yeah, they're both certainly shooting threats. You don't see it on paper necessarily from Thames in this event. Kramer was absolutely the guy who's just, you know, if he gets the ball, look out because he'll fire from anywhere. Which you know, is going to be true for him at SLU too. But yeah, definitely both shooters, offensive minded guys.
I believe we have one last Billiken related or basketball related topic. And that is our good friend, Mr. Austin McBroom, may find himself in a court soon. Either that or arbitration of some kind. According to an article at Barstool Sports by Marty Mush. I know you love Barstool Sports, which is why I mentioned them. Austin McBroom is being sued for a cool $100 million as the TikTok fighters from his YouTube versus TikTok pay-per-view fight. They haven't been paid. He hasn't paid him. The line that I love from this little blog is Austin McBroom came out last week talking about LiveX Live is holding numbers and they are the reason for the fighters not getting paid. He estimated that 2.2 million people would buy the fight, and I'm pretty sure around 180K actually bought it, and the 12-year-old kid streamed it for free on TikTok. Oh my God. Yeah, I think you put it best in your text message to me, which was,
there's no way anyone could have seen this coming. A guy who, for a living, makes his money by drawing attention to himself on social media, decides to host an event in a sport that more than any other sport in the world is known for shady promoters, bad deals, corruption, financial chicanery of every kind. And now a bunch of guys are wondering why they haven't gotten their money. And I'm wondering like why they ever thought they would. You actually make a really good point in that pay-per-view is kind of a format that's for older people. Like pay-per-view is not a concept that somebody under your age could even fathom. You're like, wait, what? Like I have to pay $50 for a boxing match? Like it just doesn't even make sense. That's like a relic of 90s era cable. And the platforms that they're on are for children,
yes.
like TikTok, is almost incomprehensible to anyone over 30. So like why did they think people were going to buy this when like the people who actually pay attention to them on social media are all younger than them and are just going to figure out ways to bootleg it.
Do you remember the old like commercial? Like they were like half infomercial commercials on like kids TV. That was like, have a parent call this number to order you like zoo books or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of commercials they should have been running.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Maybe some encyclopedias while they're at it, or like Time Life compilation albums for $17.99. It's just the whole thing's ridiculous, and I'm gonna pretty soon. I'm gonna have to put a ban on any Austin McBroom stories here. I don't know.
It couldn't have happened to a better guy. That's all I know.
It says a lot. I'll leave it at this. It says a lot about a guy when your former teammates are openly rooting against you on Twitter as you're about to fight.
That was one of the high points of that evening.
Yeah, and like I don't want to name names, but we know who we played with, and they're not guys who suffer fools. So watching them trade verbal jabs about McBroom was pretty entertaining.
And we've also heard the story rumors and everything too from his short time, thankfully, here at St. Louis. On to more pressing issues and relevant issues. Women's basketball took a hit recently. And again, this is a strange one. Maya Clark is entering the transfer portal. I don't understand it.
The thing that's so surprising here is it's very late in the game for this to kind of happen. It's one thing if she decides to leave, in April or relatively somewhat close to the spring. But for her to leave this late, it really makes you wonder. I mean, she's already missed that. It's July 1st, I believe, where the calendar flips for the transfer portal, and you're no longer considered a transfer for this fall. So it's almost like she's looking to either sit out a year or just play the second semester somewhere, maybe. But I don't know if that's even going to be possible for her. The other thing that's surprising here is she was a junior. She's already played 3 full seasons. So I don't know what it is that makes someone leave this late. And I don't know what her options are going to be. It's certainly
she was big in she was, a big time option for this team. Like
she was. I mean, she's not irreplaceable, but having already lost Rachel Kent, this is a lot of depth at guard.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Exactly. So when you're looking at what she did, she was second in 3-pointers on the team this past season. She was fourth in assists, and then she's fifth in things like scoring, minutes, field goals, free throws, rebounds. So she's putting in starter. She was a starter and put in starter level production. Again, not the top. She's not Harbison. She's not irreplaceable. She's not the best player, but between her and Kent, we've just suddenly kind of lost a lot of depth at guard, and now we're going to rely on I guess transfers and freshmen to fill that vacancy.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do. It's certainly surprising, certainly worrisome. I think for this season, this needed to be a season that Stone and the Billikens take a turn and overtake the plateau they seem to have hit the last few years. So we'll see how it goes. We still have a few months till October, November. So hopefully Stone can, make the best of the situation.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, Marissa Warren.
She was great.
She's transferring in from DePaul. Somebody we're familiar with from this past season played at Incarnate Word, which is the local legendary program. So she's somebody who's going to step in certainly and play a big role. And then I think Julia Martinez, who will now be a junior. She was clutch off the bench last season. She's definitely going to see her role elevated. So it's not that all is lost. It's more like depth is lost, and we're probably going to need a couple of younger, inexperienced players to step up and play those kind of backup roles.
Men's soccer has kind of formally announced their entire recruiting class. This one's headlined by the transfer of AJ Palazzolo, which is a big time St. Louis soccer last name.
Yeah, it is. He's a defender midfielder from CBC in Indiana, and one of 13 in this incoming class, which I think just at a high level, there's a lot of variety here in terms of where guys are coming from. You've got a handful of St. Louis kids, but also England, Israel, Hungary. You've got a few international players here. A few from Illinois and Minnesota, so heavily in the Midwest, and then a couple from the Northeast. We seem to do well up there.
Yeah, you have a couple of what I call the Dipsy Salawani transfers. You have Commodi from UMKC. Let's see, there's another one in here. Ewan, I'm assuming it's Ewan Webster, who's transferring from Maryville. So you get, that coming right across the road, but they had come from far away. So it seems like maybe they, got over here and realized they could play at a higher level. You see that quite a bit with soccer.
Yeah, you do. And man, what I wouldn't give for one of them to pick up where Dipsy left off in terms of production. I don't think we've had a goal scorer like that in quite some time. Maybe after Dipsy, I think it was probably just Vidal that could score like that.
Yeah. So a little bit. You had Cristo and Adnan at the same time, and they kind of were like two gigantic Dipsies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they were probably the closest in terms of that. But yeah, I want to say he had like 22 goals or something as a senior, something crazy like that. So yeah, certainly if we have one of those hidden gems in here, that would be great. One thing I do want to say about this is, I don't know if it was the athletic department or SLU Soccer or who made the decision, but they put out the press release of this incoming class was amazing. The level of detail, who these guys are, what they've achieved, where they're coming from, what our plans for them are on the roster. It was so well put together, and I would love to see every sport start putting out stuff like that. So credit to the men's soccer program and athletic program for putting that together, because anything you could possibly want to know about these guys, And there are 13 of them, so we don't nearly have the time to really go through them like that. But it is on SLUbillikens.com, the men's soccer page, and it's just a perfect write-up.
And if I remember, I will link it in the description as well. One last note, and if you've stuck around this long, you're going to hear me pontificate, as you normally do about women's volleyball. Hear me talk about women's volleyball. Volleyball released their schedule for the fall, and I have to take issue, as much as you liked that press release from soccer. The quote from Kent Miller in this volleyball schedule press release: "We are excited to announce our 2021 competition schedule," Miller said. "This year's non-conference schedule gives us the opportunity to compete against some of the nation's top programs, as well as having a number of highly competitive matches that will allow us to prepare for the Atlantic 10 slate." Okay, that is complete bullshit. This schedule is booty.
Let's say, take me through it. Take me through it.
Okay, Western Illinois. I believe they were under 500 last year. Missouri and Creighton, good teams. Creighton dominated what I believe is not a great Big East conference. Kansas City, terrible, under 500. You have a couple of 1 and 2 win teams, including Southern Illinois, Louisiana, Monroe, North Dakota was really bad. So, okay, Missouri, Creighton are probably the only 2 decent teams, and Missouri State are the only 3 decent teams on this schedule. Western Illinois is bad. Arkansas State is bad. Kansas City is bad. UAPB is bad. Murray State is bad. Southern Illinois is god awful. Tulane's bad. Louisiana Monroe is bad. Northern Colorado is bad. North Dakota is bad. I mean, I don't know where he's found the top teams in the nation. I don't know who was telling him these things, but it ain't true.
So let me play devil's advocate here.
Well, okay, so the A10 is really bad. Okay, so it does get us ready for the A10.
So there is that. So think back to when Majerus was relatively new, and he never really put together what I thought was a good schedule. I mean, he had pretty weak schedules there for a few years, and he made the point that he was teaching these guys and bringing them along and wanted them to kind of learn how to play and not worry about getting beat by 40 against a really tough schedule. I didn't necessarily always agree with that philosophy. I think he kind of hung on to that a little too long and should have scheduled a little harder by his, third year or so. But
what about his 10th year?
Regardless.
Sorry, I'm being the old school Zach brat now. I've lost my patience with Kent Miller, and I'm reverting to my old ways.
So basically the way a volleyball schedule works is it's a little bit different than soccer or basketball. You're playing in these, these invitationals, these tournaments, these kind of weekend round robin kind of things. The one they put together, the Billiken Invitational, is obviously weak.
Yes, that's all. It always has been. I'm not gonna. The only time it was good was the Marsha Hamilton Active Ankle Challenge, when they had I want to say Penn State and Stanford showed up for that one, which was nutty. Yeah. So
you're kind of, you get invited to Mizzou, and they put one together that's so. You get invited.
That one's actually good. That's their best. That's the best.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah, by far.
But then you get invited to Bradley and Missouri State. Neither of those are any good. And that's really your entire non-conference schedule.
Fair enough.
So maybe you play in one good one. You see what high-level competition looks like, Mizzou, Creighton. You come home, you play some cupcakes. You go to a couple more of these things that you have a chance of winning. Maybe by the time A10 rolls around, they're playing confident. They're playing well. I don't know.
I don't hate where you're going with that. I respect the thought process. I do. It's it's just, I mean, to schedule the only two teams that were actively the only one game. I'm sorry, one game, because Western Illinois is an exhibition. The one game dude. Okay, what I will say. All right, I'll say this. There are 3 regular season home games, and they're all in that tournament, and that's it. So I will say that going on the road, fair enough, could be part of his strategy to road test this team. But I mean, the one game literally you scheduled is against Southern Illinois. And let me pull up their because this is what I went through, because like I said, recruiting news is not my forte. 2-18 last year, 1-17 in conference. It just, I mean, I don't know. Somebody put out the tweet about Jamion Christian at GW, his schedule. There's no way they can fire me if I go 10-3 in conference or whatever. That's what Kent Miller has done for 10 years at St. Louis University.
Can't argue with the winning record.
Oh my God. I got to get out of here before I start saying things that I'm going to regret. Before we really can't get the guests that we want to get anymore. No, it's frustrating. Again, I've been close to the program for, as long as I can remember. So, and I was in the program for a year. So it holds a special place, and I get frustrated. So I don't mean any personal, I will never criticize Kent Miller. I'm sure as a person, I'm sure he's a wonderful human being and dude, but at the end of the day, I want to see the program succeed. And I want to see better out of it. So,
right.
But yeah, I don't mean any obviously disrespect to anybody in that program personally. Although it probably is taken personally. I can't imagine anybody doesn't. But yeah, I mean, anything we failed to cover, we've got a big time interview coming for you guys. I don't want to spoil it yet, because I always get nervous. We've got part 2 of Kevin Lish. We got that scheduled. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
You can finally exhale, Pete.
I know. Well, maybe not until it's in the can, but yeah, you knew he'd come through. He's too nice not to.
Yes. And that will cover, as far as our notes go, that would cover immediately post SLU. We'll go through his pro career. Then I hope we can get a deep dive into his Olympic experience, and then what he's doing as far as coaching with the Sydney Kings and what he's up to now. So very excited to get on with Kevin and talk some more, because I mean, I can't think of a better reason to wake up at 4:45 a.m.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Luckily an hour later for me, but yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And just a reminder, please check us out on Twitter. We put a lot out there, and
you put a lot out there. Jesus, don't oversell what I do.
Well, it's still technically we. So,
yes, it is. It is. Yes.
But yeah, but for real, check us out, Midtown Mad Pod. Did I get that right? Midtown. Yeah. And please, anything that we're missing, anything that you catch, hey, here, I saw this about the schedule. Somebody the other day brought my attention to the fact that UAB released their non-conference schedule. I didn't have a date yet for UAB, just knew we were playing them. So I update our Twitter feed. I've got that date, stuff like that. If you get any sort of tip or anything you notice about recruiting, hit us up. We love to interact with people there and spread the good word.
Yeah, it's it's funny that we're playing UAB, because that's always been my running joke, that I hated watching us play at UAB because it always seems like we'd come back with a loss.
Some of those Conference USA gyms were just brutal.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed our interview with Matt Modderno. And we will see you guys when we release this interview that we're hopefully going to record tomorrow after Modderno. So go Bills.
Go Bills.